Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, you're welcome to Sew with Mediva. And if you're a returning subscriber or a returning viewer, thank you for sticking to my channel. In today's video, I'll be showing you guys how to make this trending extended peplum top that I'm wearing. And I achieved this style using 2 yards of African print fabric. And this is what the back of the top looks like. It's a simple halter neckline bustier top. You can decide to make the upper part of your own difference if you want. If you find this video useful, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, leave a comment, subscribe to my channel, share this video to your loved ones, and also watch till the end. So let's jump right in. So to make this top, I made use of 2 yards of this beautiful African print fabric, although I have 6 yards here because I'll be making a pants from it, and I have my other sewing materials here. So we'll be drafting out on the pattern paper for clarity and accuracy of measurement. So the first thing I'm going to do is to mark out a starting line which is going to serve as the shoulder line. So because this top is a tube bustier, I'm going to place my tape rule 7 inches above the starting line. So ideally my chest line is around 8 inches. So I just took out 1 inch from that 8 inches to get 7 inches. So we're going to mark the length for the upper part of this top, which is from the shoulder to the half length plus 2 extra inches, because you don't want your peplum to start directly at the half length. So I marked 18 inches for mine. So my shoulder to my half length is 16 inches and I added 2 extra inches to it to make 18 inches. So I'll just go ahead to cut out the excess paper I have. So this is the one we'll be working with for our top. And the wideness of the paper I have here is about 17 inches, which is more than enough. So still placing my tape rule 7 inches above the chest line, I'm going to go ahead and mark all the vertical measurements. The first one is from my shoulder to my bust point, which is 10.5. The next one is from my shoulder to my under bust, which is 13.5. And then from my shoulder to my half length, which is 16 inches. So mark your own correct measurements and then extend the lines this way. After extending, go ahead to label the line. This is the chest line, this is the bust point, the under bust, and the half length. So make sure to label your lines to avoid confusion. The next thing we want to do is to mark out the dart line. And to get your dart line, divide your nipple to nipple measurements by 2. Mine is 4 inches. So I'm going to mark 4 inches starting from the center front. I'll mark 4 inches on all the lines this way. Make sure to work with your own correct measurement and then connect the points together this way. After doing that, I'll come over to the under bust. For the under bust tightening, I'm going to do 1 inch on both sides. But for a bigger bust, you can do 1.5 inches towards that side and 1 inch towards the center front. But for mine, I used 1 inch on both sides and then I connected it all the way down to the full length of my top. So I'll come over to the bust line now and come down by 1 inch and then take the curved part of my ruler and just form a curve all the way to meet the under bust. The next thing is to do the over bust tightening, and I'm going to do 0.5 inches, half an inch on both sides of the line. A bigger bust can take 0.75 to 1 inch on both sides and then connect it to the bust line this way. The next thing to do is to place the round body measurement, and on the bust line I'll mark my round bust measurements divided by 4, which is 10.5 inches, and 1.5 inches for seam allowance to make 12 inches. So I'll mark that same 12 inches on the chest line. You don't need to add any dart to it because that dart is for the tightening of the over bust. And then on the under bust line, I'll mark my round under bust measurements divided by 4, which is 8.5. I'll add the 2 inches for that and 1.5 inches for seam allowance to make the same 12 inches. So since my under bust and my waist measurements is the same, I'm going to just mark the same 12 inches on the waistline. So after marking out all the measurements, I'll go ahead to connect the points together. So for mine, I have a straight line all the way down. So this is going to differ according to your body measurement. Yours might not come out straight like mine. So we're going to be cutting out this shaded part of the pattern. So let's go ahead to cut it out. So I'll take the sides and then I'll open up the dart area. So when cutting on your fabric, you're going to cut this on a fold, and this is going to be the folded part while you cut out 2 pieces of this. So let's work on the back panel now, and I have my pattern paper cut out already. The wideness is about 17 inches, which is more than enough. So the first thing to do is to come to one edge, the center back, and take 1.5 inches as my zipper allowance. After marking, I'll go ahead to connect the points together this way. And then I'll also mark out my starting line, which is going to serve as the chest line. So to mark the vertical measurement, just like we did with the front, I'm going to place my tape rule 7 inches above the starting line and mark from my shoulder to my bust point, which is 10.5. My shoulder to my half length is 16 inches, and then the full length of this upper part is 18 inches. So if your back half length measurement is shorter than your front half length, go ahead to mark the correct thing, but make sure to add a side dart to your front panel so that it aligns on the side. I hope you guys understand. So I also went ahead to cut out the excess paper that I won't be needing. So this is what we have after marking out the measurements. The next thing we want to take is the dart. So we're going to take all the measurements from this zipper line. So I'm going to mark my nipple to nipple measurements divided by 2 on all the lines again, and then connect it all the way down. So I'll come over to the waistline and take 0.5 inches on both sides, half an inch. So a bigger size can do 1 inch on both sides, and then I'll connect it all the way down. Then take my ruler and just extend it all the way to the chest line this way. So we're still going to be cutting out this dart. The next thing is to mark the round body measurement. On the bust line, I'll mark the bust measurements divided by 4 and add my 1.5 inches for seam allowance, and then I'll mark that same measurement on the chest line. On the waistline, I'll mark the round waist measurements divided by 4. I'll add the 1 inch dart and 1.5 inches seam allowance. And then I'll mark that same measurement on the waist on the full length as well. And then go ahead to connect the points together. After connecting, let's go ahead to cut it out. So the next thing we want to do is to take out the zipper bulge allowance, and on the waistline I'll come in by 0.75 inches, which is half of the 1.5 inches I have there, and then go ahead to extend it all the way up this way. So we're going to be cutting out that part. This is going to help your zipper relax very well at the back. So I'll go ahead to open up the dart area as well, and this is what we have. So on the fabric, I want to cut this as one pattern, so I'm going to use my masking tape now to join it together. So this is what we have after joining. So we're going to cut out 2 pieces of this on the fabric for both sides of the back panel. So another thing we need to do is to come up to this center back on the waistline and come up by 1 inch. Then take your ruler and just form a slant to the side this way. All this is just going to help the back part of your top relax very well. So I'll go ahead now and use these patterns to cut on my fabric, and then I'll show you guys the next thing to do. So after cutting out on the fabric, this is what we have. So like I said, I have 2 pieces of the back, and I also have my lining pieces cut out as well. I added a little allowance to the zipper area and to the base of the top for joining. And for the front panels, like I said earlier, I have 2 pieces of this, and I also have the linings cut out. And for this, it is folded into 2, and this is the folded angle. I also have my lining cut out. I added half an inch to the dart areas for joining, and also to the base for joining to the peplum. So at this point, you can go ahead to cut out hairstay and iron to the wrong side of your fabric or to your lining, just depends on what you want. But for this tutorial, I won't be doing all of that, but you can always do that if you want to. So let's go ahead now to start joining the fabrics together. So we're going to start joining the front panels. So I'm going to take out the pattern paper from it. I'll set them aside and also set the back panels aside. So when you open up your fabrics, this is what you will have. This is the center front, and these are the sides. So what we're going to do next is to join the 3 pieces together. So I'm going to place them right sides facing each other this way, and then use the ½ inch allowance I added to stitch it together all the way down. When I'm done with that side, I'll repeat the same process on the other one. And then I'll also join the lining pieces together just like I did with the main fabric. So guys, after joining, this is what we have. Before you open it up, you're going to go ahead and notch the seam areas opened. So go ahead to make small cuts on the seam just as you can see me doing. And this is going to help the seam relax very well on the right side when you are done. So I'll repeat the same thing on the other side, and I'll also do it on the lining. So after notching, to make your bustier very neat on the right side, go ahead to place it on a circular surface, either your tailor's ham or just any round surface, and then open up the seam this way. Then go ahead to iron it out very well. Note that you can decide to pad your bustier, it is up to you, but for mine I didn't pad it. So I'll also iron out the other one, and on the right side I'll also do the same thing, placing it on a circular surface. So when I'm done with that, I'll do the same on the lining and show you guys. So guys, after I ironed out, this is what we have. You can see how neat the bustier now looks on the right side, and this is what the wrong side looks like. You can see how neat it looks. And for the lining, I went ahead to do the same thing. So the next thing we're going to do is to turn over with our lining, and I'm going to place them right sides facing each other. I'll stitch the upper part closed. I'll close up the sides as well using 1/2 inch. I'll leave the lower part opened for turning over. So for the back panel, I'll go ahead now to remove my pattern paper. So I'll go ahead to separate the fabrics carefully and the lining so that it doesn't get mixed up, and then place them right sides facing each other. This way I'll close up the upper part using 1/2 inch. I'll close up the sides, and I'll also close up the zipper area. I'll repeat the same process on the other side, then I'll show you guys what it looks like when I'm done. So guys, I've turned over with my lining and I ironed it out, and this is what we have. You can see how neat it looks. And for the front part, I also turned over to the right side, and this is what it looks like. The next thing we want to do is to insert the straps that we're using to create the halter neck design, and I've gone ahead to cut it out already. So this is the fabric. I folded it into two and I turned over to the right side. So the wideness of the fabric after I turned over is about 2.5 inches, meaning I cut out 6 inches wide fabric and folded into two. So, and I made sure I closed up one side of the, so I'll place the open side of my strap on the side of my blouse this way, come down by 1 inch from the chest line, and then go ahead to pin the strap on it this way. And then for the other side, I'll also come down by 1 inch. So your strap can be as long as you want, it just depends on your style. So the major focus of this tutorial is the extending peplum style. So you can decide to make the upper part of your top anyhow you like and just do that design at the base. So this one is going to go across the neckline this way, and I'll tie it at the back. So after stitching down, this is what we have. The next thing we want to do is to close up the sides. So I'm going to place the front and the back panels right sides facing each other this way. And then remember, we already used 1/2 inch to turn the lining over. So that means we're left with only 1 inch for our side seam allowance. So I'm going to go ahead and just use 1 inch to close up the sides, following the shape of my blouse this way. And I'll do the same thing for the other side. And then go ahead to stitch it down. So after stitching, guys, this is what we have. This is what the top looks like already. So you can decide to work with whatever design you want for the upper part of your top. So the next thing we want to work on is the peplum design, and I have the fabrics cut out already. I have two fabrics cut out, one for the front and the other for the back. And for the length of my top, I want it to be 26 inches. So since I already used 18 inches for the upper part, the length of my peplum is going to be around 8 inches, but I have 10 inches there because of the joining and the folding allowance. And for the length of this fabric, I have about 70 inches. So it just depends on how long you want the extension of your peplum to be. That's going to determine how long you want. But for mine, I made use of 70 inches length. So I'm going to fold the fabric into two. This is for the front panel. I'll fold it into two this way and then notch the center point. After notching, I'll get the upper part of my top and fold it into two this way to notch the midpoint. So you're going to notch the midpoint of the front panel this way and then open it up like this. So I'll go ahead and place the fabric on the upper part of my top this way, making sure the right sides are facing each other, and then merge the notched points together. I'll also come over to the side joining area and then go ahead to also pin it down. So that is the place where I'm going to stop stitching. So the remaining fabric is going to fall down to create the extension. So I'll stitch from this point all the way to the other joining this way. So just watch the points that I'm pinning. So after pinning down, I'm going to take it to my sewing machine now and stitch all the way from the side joining to the other side, from one side joining to the other side, and the remaining fabric is going to fall as the extension. So for the back panel, I'll fold the material into two this way and just divide it. Remember, we're going to be having a zipper at the center back. I'll fold it into two and divide it. So I'm going to use them for both sides of the back panel. So I'm going to place the fabric right side facing the upper one this way again, and then go ahead to stitch it all the way to meet that side joining again. But make sure you're not joining the two fabrics together. Just stitch it and stop just before the side joining. I'll go ahead to pin it down, and then the remaining fabric is going to create the extension. And for the other side of the back, I'm going to place it on it this way, just like I explained, and stitch all the way to meet that side joining. So make sure you have a tiny gap between the two fabrics, between the one that came from the front and the one that came from the back. So I'll go ahead now to stitch it down. I'll stitch for the front and I'll also stitch the back. When I'm done, I'll show you guys. So guys, after stitching, this is what we have. So this is what I was trying to explain. So make sure that when you stitch, you don't stitch the two fabrics together. Make sure there's still a tiny gap before your side joining. So you should have something that looks like this when you are done. So I'll go ahead, turn it over to the wrong side now, and then fold up the fabric this way and stitch all the way down. I just fold it twice, just use the tiny allowance and fold it in twice and stitch it all the way down. Do the same thing for the other side. So just continue that stitch and fold it all the way down. So after you are done folding, you're going to notice that you have a little bit of fabric on the waistline of your top. So go ahead to just fold it in this way. You're going to have a little bit of fabric on the waistline, so just fold it in. And I'll do the same thing for the other side. Just fold in that little bit of fabric and stitch it down. So I'll also finish up the base of the peplum and show you guys. So guys, after I folded in the allowances, this is what it looks like. And on this side, like I explained, I just folded in the remaining part of the waistline and stitched it down. And you can see how beautiful and neat it looks already. So guys, the last and final thing we want to do is to insert the zipper to the back panel. So I'll flip my top over now to the wrong side this way, and then I'll go ahead to fold the zipper allowance of 1 inch. So I have 1 inch left because I already turned over with the lining with about half of an inch. So I'm going to just use 1 inch to be on the safer side. So I'll fold in 1 inch this way and then place the right side of my zipper on it like this. So I'm going to start from the base of my top and then go ahead to pin my zipper on it on the allowance. So I'll repeat the same thing on the other side, and then go ahead to stitch it all the way down. I'll stitch it on this side and on the other side. So when I'm done with that, I will just open up my zip this way, cut off some excess and then fold it in. So I'll cut off the excess zipper and then fold in the edge this way and stitch it down. So guys, after inserting the zipper, this is what it looks like. You can see how neat and beautiful it looks, and this is what the front panel looks like. So I hope you're going to give this tutorial a trial, and I hope you found it useful and helpful. If you have any question, you can leave it in the comment section. So guys, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, leave a comment, subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye.